Warning: the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, cool. All right, well, welcome back to Win the Night podcast. I have a very special guest with me tonight, and I just want to let you introduce yourself, man.
Yes, I'm honored. Special. That's nice. My name is Jake Freudinger, a longtime friend of Josh, friend of the show. Can I say that? Yeah, sure.
Sure.
And yeah, we went to high school together. We've made videos together. We started this whole crazy, stupid journey of trying to make money off of videos, and now we've realized there's more to it. So it's yeah. Josh and I go back. We go back. I'm just a fun-loving person. Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that, it was stupid at first when we started. Because, we were, I guess, we thought we were really good.
Oh, God, yeah.
And, hey, I think we are. We just didn't have any good ideas then.
Yeah, I think the potential was something.
but hey,
we figured out. We grew into our own.
But look at what it developed.
Yeah, man.
Like you mentioned, and I just want to state it again because I think it's super important. This is an important detail because I wouldn't be here doing this if it wasn't for that detail, which is that, like I told you when we talked last time, you were a big inspiration for why I got into content creation.
I'm honored, actually.
So I want to give kudos to you for that because you've always had a mind of super intelligent in anything regarding editing, filming.
You have to clarify. There's a lot of things I'm very dumb at. So no, I'm just
kidding. To be fair, you didn't go get a degree in it, and yet you're able to create content like you did.
To the University of YouTube, it was a magical place when we were.
Oh yeah.
There's so much information that you can take from just watching even somebody just do something.
Sure.
Not even a traditional tutorial.
Sure.
So that's a big chunk of it. Yeah. Definitely.
And we'll see that's the cool part, right? Is that, the YouTube kind of taught you what it is to be an editor, and, you don't need to go to these giant schools. Yeah. And that's kind of something that you proved by doing that. And what really drew me to it is I was like, I know I want to do this, but I don't know to what capacity.
Exactly. Where your place is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think what I've noticed, with other friends that I've talked to, is it seems like our 20s was the most shape shifting time for us so far, right? Because we had a glimmer of what we were gonna be when we were in our teens and high school and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But now it's now it's zoomed in.
I think we almost called our shot without calling our shot on accident.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
It's we knew we knew the fire was there. We didn't know what the fire was made of. You know what I mean? Or how to stoke it.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I couldn't have put that one better.
Oh yeah. Instead of using lighter fluid, we need to use something a little bit slower.
No, but see, yeah, so we had a sense of a general direction of where we wanted to go.
Yeah.
But that's what's been really cool, right? Is in the time that I haven't talked to you, because we haven't talked, we just recently started talking again.
It's been a good time, good amount of time.
But that's been the case with all of my other friends too. Is it's just I kind of withdrew for a while, and I found out that a lot of my friends also did the same thing.
Yeah.
And so what's kind of inspired this whole thing, I've talked about in the previous episodes, is everyone is now coming back to. Everyone kind of exploded out into the world.
Yeah.
And so now we're okay, yeah, now I'm really confused.
All the birdies are coming back to the nest. We're all just flying back all right, so where's our core?
So what did you find? So basically we're all messengers. All right, I was out in the galaxy of adulthood.
Yeah, what are you bringing to the table now?
And so now everyone comes back, right? And then it's this is what I've experienced. And the experiences that have happened in just the time that we've been away from high school, which is decade, Jesus. It's been 10 years now.
Stop. Don't. I need to rewind.
Yeah.
Go get the DeLorean now.
It went by pretty quick, but in that time frame, in 10 years, the amount of evolution everybody has gone through has been insane.
Mind blowing.
The let me just give an example, and you can take the floor on this one. Is you are now a father.
Oh God, yeah. It's but I'm saying it like it's like a hidden part of my life. No, no, I'm a parent, and I'm kind of blown away day by day what I thought I understood about life, and that is like time. It's the biggest thing I feel at the time that I had robbed myself of. Once we got out of high school and like we had all these options and I didn't know what to choose. But once I realized that, things happened, life went by, I had a baby, me and my fiance Bree, we kind of sat down and I just realized I don't need all of this extra stuff. I don't need a big career right away. I don't need, the most amount of money. I don't need the highest paying job. Like I have everything I've ever wanted. I think I told you this too in like a text. I have everything I've ever wanted. And I didn't realize that until, I kind of, I guess, came into my own as like a parent. Like that really was the core of the transformation, I guess. It was kind of like the tipping point for me. Like I realized, okay, so this is where I belong. Regardless of the extra stuff, regardless of the career that I want to have. I do want a career that's, fulfilling and, pays my bills. Everybody does. But I don't think anything will cost or will feel more worth it than spending time, starting our family, raising my child, and just seeing how everybody grows.
Is it what you thought it was going to be?
No, and in the best way possible.
How so?
I thought it would be. Sorry, let me mute my thing here. Sorry. Okay. I thought it would be, I guess, less. I thought it would be more hectic. That's the best way to put it. I thought that I would be more focused on, providing and doing all this, and I realized, very quickly that it's really about those like smaller moments.
Do you feel like here's a better question than what I was going to ask. How prepared did you feel to be a parent?
Well, so we did plan my daughter. We did plan that she was a planned baby. It wasn't like a surprise or anything. And even then, you can never, like, I know everybody says like, oh, you can never be prepared. You're never going to be prepared to have a baby. But like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. Okay. Like we thought we were 100% prepared going in, and we were like, oh, my fiance's buying everything she can. Bree goes and buys clothes, stuff, all this stuff. And then we realized, once the baby was born and once, I'm sitting there freaking out about everything, like we realized like there's so many things that are so nuanced in raising kids emotionally, socially, physically. Like you're never prepared enough. You really never are. Especially, having to try to form this like young mind in these like super form, like the first year is so important for development. And it's almost like that supersedes anything you ever thought about. You're more focused on like, I guess, just making sure your kids, in a good life, in a good situation, every second of every day. It's like the first thing that hits your mind when you wake up and the last thing that goes when you go to bed.
How do you feel, knowing that fact that you can't ever be prepared enough?
I think it brings an amount of peace, really, which took a while to get to. But I think knowing that you don't have all the control can be a super empowering thing. You can prepare for anything, but if you're willing to accept that at the end of it, you could totally just fail. And if you're okay with that, what else is there to be worried about?
So you feel like, worried in terms of being worried, you don't feel like super worried about?
I don't think so. No, I mean, like the normal things concern you,
Yeah.
will my kid go to school when she's old enough and, have friends and all that? Like that stuff worries you. But like knowing that like if I just wake up and try to put my best foot forward in like every possible way that I can, and like I struggle with it. We all do. Yeah. But knowing that is where you can like kind of rest your hope in, knowing that like, everything is like actually good. We're good. work with, maybe not the best, maybe
Sure.
there's, issues between people, or maybe you have, your own, I've had a lot of, mental health, struggles as it's part of the reason why I'm here. But that to me became the most empowering thing, was realizing that I didn't have to, I guess, like, rush through everything.
Yeah, that's
Really.
fair enough. Well, touching on, like you mentioned, the subject of mental health, how have you been since we talked? It's been like close to 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Ups and downs, peaks and valleys. We stopped talking, I think, at a really dark time in my life. And I won't get too far into details, but
Sure.
I was pushing everyone away because I thought that was what everyone else wanted. I felt that, and part of it's because of the fact that I got so in my own head, but I thought that my presence wasn't wanted, or at least was a hindrance. And I think that was part of the reason why I was like, hey, and in my personal life, there was so much other hectic, crazy stuff going on that I think you get so focused on, like, the what if, what if I'm doing this? What if I'm upsetting this person? And it got to me. And that was, I kind of just stopped talking to people in general. Like, I kind of cut everybody out, and, sorted some things out in my personal life. And, when you called me, it was kind of along the lines of how we started talking again a few years back, because it was just like hey, like, I have this idea and I want help, and I want your opinion. And I'm like, you know what, fuck it, yeah, of course. Like,
Yeah.
I have to answer the phone to you. You know what I mean? If not, you'll be in my front yard with, no, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm very honored that you feel that way.
No, I'm honored that you feel honored being, working with me. It's weird. It's a weird feeling to feel, but it feels, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. I'm grateful that you did answer the reply, because, like I mentioned to you earlier, I have never been, whenever I've thought of an idea, when it comes to video creation, I have known no better person to reach out to than you about it, because to this day, I don't know anybody that's better. And even if I did, I still would reach out to you because your experience in that field is worth getting that information either way, right?
And we gel.
And yeah,
we gel.
And it helps too that we do get along pretty
Most
well.
definitely. I'm gonna get rid of this pillow. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
It's really, really digging in there. All right.
My back needs that pillow.
Yeah. I just slipped a disc 4 days ago, so it's a miracle I'm walking right now.
How did that happen?
I was tilting backwards on a chair I shouldn't have been tilting backwards on, and the top part of it just totally disconnected.
Isn't it great that we're at that age now?
Dude, I slipped the disc prior to this just by living. I'm not sure what I did the first night.
Yeah. That's
yeah, man. We're old men. I feel like we're in our 40s, but we're in our 20s.
We're gonna get to our 30s real soon.
Stop reminding me.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
it's too late. Well, that's the part that I thought that was worth getting your opinion on is reaching out over the idea, because every time we've had an idea, because we've worked together, like you said, a couple times in the past, and the last time we talked was actually because of another project we were working on together.
100%. And
unfortunately, COVID kind of destroyed everything, and it just didn't work out. And in some scenarios, I guess it was a blessing in disguise, because I still needed more time to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. In the spectrum of creation for content, and man. So when I reached out to you, I was like, Jake would probably be able to help me with this, because I kind of stopped doing all of this stuff for a long time.
Right.
And
same. No.
Same. I stopped doing it for a long time because I didn't have a use for the skill, I guess.
Right.
And so when I jumped back into it, I just felt like I was a newborn, in this field again.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah. I felt like I didn't know, I had forgotten, I data dumped everything I had. And it's not like I knew a ton anyway, right?
No, but it's like all these people are so like in tune with the way the internet works now. And for a minute, like I was totally gone. I was like lost. I was like, what are we, what?
Oh yeah.
What is this?
It was foreign waters for sure. Like to come back into it. And plus like because you and I are perfectionists, I think that's why we both gel really well.
Yeah.
Because we have this high resolution view of what we want. And so we want, the hard part is to get it from our heads into the realm of reality, right? Is like, how do I make it exactly how I envisioned it in my head?
And it never turns out that way.
And it never turns out that way. And sometimes it's better. Yeah. And that's been the case here is like, and, friends like you have helped me do that because, when I sat down about the idea and like, hey, how do I do this? Like little tidbits, like you're already on it. You're like, just this.
This and this, and this. Yeah.
And I was like, great, this is what I needed. Right. And so, anyway, but yeah, that's
it's part of that collaborative like force, behind content.
And that's been the easy part for me of reaching out to you. You're never like, no, you know what I mean?
I'd be a dick, It's just no.
You're never like,
never.
Yeah, that's not going to work. Like, and that's what I enjoy about, working with you. So
I think if you don't have that open-minded, like, let's fucking, I'm sorry, I'm swearing. So
no,
much.
You're
it's
good.
Like, let's see if we could do this. Like, if you don't have that like mentality of like, let's try it, you're never going to make anything.
Yeah.
And I find myself struggling with that a lot. Like I forget that like you just have to, press record. You just have to say something to the camera. You just have to just get your point, across and then figure it out from there. What's the next step? You know? And that's for you. I mean, you're like 50 steps ahead. You put a lot behind this. You know what I mean?
And it's been because, and it hasn't been the great thing is that the reason why it came this fast or why it evolved this fast is because of the help of the people that I've had on the podcast. Like it's truly been, that's what's really sped it up in the way that it has now is the amount of help I've gotten on it. And, I really couldn't have done it without everybody this quickly. Yeah. So
no, and that's again like beckoning to that collaboration, man. It's just you have to have that working for you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like almost that spirit of that kind of working around you without everybody and just kind of making sure that everybody's on that same page.
Well, that's we were just talking about the fact that when everyone went out and kind of tried to figure out what adulthood was. Yeah. Coming back. Realizing that community is a big part of it, of like when you go away from community for a long time, you're like, oh, I kind of need that actually.
Yeah, most definitely.
And so then that's what this chapter of my life has been, and as I can see, is kind of similar to the chapter you're on. Like all right, we went out into like the open space of adulthood and came back and realized like, oh, actually I kind of miss these people, or, I've been away for a long time. I haven't known what's going on with this person. Like, let me go and reach out. And that's kind of been the case for me is like, hey, let me go reach out.
Yeah. It's also a lot of reflection, I think, kind of like not necessarily dwelling on the past, but thinking, okay, so, what can I do not to make people think better of me, but more what can I do to kind of get fulfillment out of whether it's a friendship or, a relationship with a family or something like that. It's really trying to find and not, not only what works for me, but what also works for the other person. Like where can we both find fulfillment in that friendship that makes it worth spending a lot of our time together.
It's such a good way to put it is like trying to figure out like at this point before our friendship was we just enjoyed like doing things that we both liked, but now we're trying to figure out, hey, like how can we really make this relationship like the best it can be and strengthen it and you know
and still utilizing those same things, but kind of maturing that friendship and that relationship
that we can read each other and go, hey, does this bother you? Like being able to have that communication where as before it was just kind of like, oh, that guy seemed kind of mad, I'll just leave him alone. Like that's how it used to be for me is like if I felt like somebody was upset with me, I'd be like, let me give that like a couple days.
and
just wouldn't ask anything,
and I feel like depending on the situation, if somebody's heated enough or upset enough, like give it a couple days. But like I think there's a rawness to that, that gelling, when you get to that point.
What I'm finding is that it's hard to ask the question of, is there something that I said that upset you? Because if you hear that answer and the answer is yes, you upset me, or you said something that upset me, now you're kind of, at least the way that I see it is I'm kind of looking at myself like, oh, am I not a good person?
Right. Oh, what else am I doing wrong?
Yeah. Am I just not a good friend?
Right.
And it's hard to ask that question because then you have to look at yourself. I found that it's like connected to like your childhood and,
in a lot more ways than we talk about.
Right. And
Most definitely.
And I was like, oh, yes, this is a rejection issue, right? Like you don't want to be rejected by your friends. And that feels like rejection when someone goes, you upset me. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like to think that
even if they could be telling you to grow closer with you, it still could feel that same, which is almost even worse.
That's the scary part is like the uncertainty of, how are they going to take this if I say it? But that's kind of the point where I feel like we have matured in the way that we do things is like now I found is that the best way to do it is to have the uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, is it possible that I upset you?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and if it is, then, can you please let me know what it is?
And to really be expecting, maybe not the worst, but like expect to hear those harsh words, because the faster you can get over the sting, you know what I mean? The more you can kind of focus on like, okay, so what was really said here? Take my emotions out of it. What was said?
And the crazy part too is also not just that portion of like just get it over with. It's more like a learning to not take everything somebody says about you personally,
right? As
much as it might be about you that they're upset about. Maybe they've misunderstood something, and it doesn't mean that that's who you are. If someone goes, "You upset me because you did this," and it's like, it doesn't have to mean that you're a bad person. Yeah. It just means that you did something that somebody found to be offensive, or somebody found to be maybe they misread what you said, or
and it doesn't have to like define the content of like either the character of like who you are. Like you don't have to let that define you.
And I found that the reason why like I avoided that is because like I felt like I had to own whatever that person's idea of me was. And part of maturing is realizing that you don't.
Right.
And you're only responsible for who you actually are, rather than the opinion, keeping up of what people think of you.
I don't know what or who said it, and it might be a famous quote, and I might butcher it, but the quote is something like, you are not responsible for your trauma, but you are responsible for the way you recover and heal from it. And I think that like taking that concept and turning it like outwardly and how you interact with people as well is really just like nail on the head. You are so very responsible for who you are and what your future is, but you are not responsible for, and it's okay to own up to things. But it doesn't mean that you have to like answer for them like now when you've done something or said something or felt something 10, 15 years ago.
Sure. Yeah.
It's different if you're actively being a jerk, but like, if you really can understand where, that part is kind of hindering you could, it's pretty powerful, pretty magical,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so then, we spend all this time apart. What have you been up to?
Oh, nothing. Making humans. Just been kind of in and out of content creation. I worked at a big major retailer that sells cell phones and computers. They make juice too. Spent some time working my dream job, the job that I wanted since I was a kid. And realized that I didn't want to do it.
What made you realize that?
Well, for starters, it's retail. Every kid wants to just work in the store that they want to shop at. That's really, I feel like, the core of it. But working and doing what I enjoy doing was not what I thought I enjoyed doing. So like I really thought that I enjoyed helping people and with these devices and problem solving in that environment. And like I do, it's fun. I'm very good at it, but I didn't feel like it was driving, any growth out of me, at least. I think for a year it was very like I was growing and learning a lot. But then once I got to a point where I'm like, this really is, it's feeling more of a chore than it is life. And on top of that, I was closer to a mass shooting than my kid one day in Chicago, and that to me was a kind of a no-brainer. I was an hour and a half away from my family and 5 minutes away from a situation where somebody, unfortunately, I think there was like 5 or 6 people killed, if I'm not mistaken. an absurd feeling to have, a very weird feeling. And I'm not, trying to, victim. Oh, what would me like? I was safe. I was, in a mall locked up. But like, what if it wasn't?
Mm-hmm.
What if that shooting happened at the mall instead of at the parade? What if it happened, in the store instead of, that thought instantly goes through your mind,
So when the shooting happened, that was like a wake up call for you, do you think?
That was my point where I said, I don't care what it is, in 2 months, I'm going to be out of this job. And it nothing else drove my decision more than that. I think everything else just kind of added on top of that. So I broke my foot.
Okay.
And then I had to take a leave from the job almost around the exact same time I started feeling this. And I won't get into the details, but I ended up not working out, and I decided to start looking for other work. And that to me was almost like like I was in this job. I loved it. I was working, every day, driving 2 hours there and back from the job because I loved working at that specific location so much. And I love the people there. I love the connections I built. But I think it was just the universe telling me, or God or whatever, telling me that it was kind of time to just bite the bullet. Like I could see it coming that I wasn't going to stay here. I was not going to fit in, to that, or the job wasn't going to fit into that compartment that I wanted it to fit into in my life. And that was really what it came down to, was just kind of realizing that there was so much time wasted, I think, in that world, driving to it, driving back, being so far away from my family, when what I really want more than anything is to spend as much time as I can with my family. And that to me, I think was it. That was the breaking point. Yeah.
Yeah. If I think that, I don't want to say I disagree with you with, like in terms of calling it a waste. I think that it taught you a pretty big lesson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And I guess that would be the wrong verbiage. I guess what I should say is it didn't serve that purpose anymore.
Sure.
That would be the best way to put it. That same, that feeling that you get when you're, in that right place in that right time. Like it felt like my time was like I was moving past it, I guess.
Yeah.
So not wasteful. You're right. I did learn a lot. Plus the discount was nice.
Yeah. But the important part is like you realize this isn't for me, and you did the hardest thing that there is to do for people who are comfortable where they are, which is like, I'm going to stay here even though I know it's not the thing I want to do, because I don't want to go look for another job and then go through the process of, not the uncertainty, because like it's really scary right now to not have a job. Like it's, especially with you having a family, and it's just, once people have families, like it's a lot, it's not just you anymore.
Oh yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing I've been struggling with this whole, life change the past, few years, just everything kind of forming into, what my life will be. It's really challenging to know, like financially, like when I left, or when I, separated from the company, that was that moment where I was like, okay, I have nothing. I have no income. I have no savings. We've got like a couple bucks in the bank account. We've got tax returns coming up, so that'll help. But like the whole world kind of just, or your whole world kind of just pauses for a second. And you're like, okay, there's a lot of stuff I have to look at. But again, surviving through that, doing a couple jobs here and there. I did some editing for a while. I'm going to be working in some new stuff soon. But getting to that point and being able to just be like, okay, like I could have nothing. I could be homeless right now.
Sure.
But I have time with my kids. And that sounds irresponsible and foolish, but we're not homeless. we have, I'm not completely blind to it, but I think if you lose sight of, people and lose sight of that time, you kind of lose sight of the whole picture. So I guess sacrificing everything to also gain everything that you want in that moment is a weird, broad stroke, but a way to put it.
I think it's also, great to be, because I mean, you get to be in your child's life in a time in which like a lot of parents wish that they could witness, their first steps. And
and I wouldn't trade that for anything, honestly. I wouldn't trade that. If somebody gave me $500,000 tomorrow and said, you got to be working 70 hours a week, but we'll give you $500,000, sorry.
Mm.
40, fine. 30, yeah. No, I'm like, I won't sit there and slave my life away for, a couple dollars and miss like her riding a bike or her losing her first tooth.
Yeah.
Like, those things to me are so much more important. And I think that's also part of why, we've always wanted to be like working for ourselves, because I feel like, and I know you're very family oriented when it comes to
course,
like, your family is like your core of like who you are, your brothers and your mom.
My friends are also a big portion. I've realized that now is like my friends have become, I've realized that my friends are actually part of my family. Like that's how I see them like, for example, I see you as like a sibling.
Yeah. Same.
Truly. Like and especially because for me, when I was younger, my family split as I told you when, a long time ago. And so I didn't have a lot of my siblings with me. And so like, my friends became like my siblings.
Yeah.
Does that makes sense? Like, that was, so you guys were the people that, I went to when I was like upset or when I had an idea and I was like, what do you think of this? And you know, so I realized, and now as an adult, I'm realizing that, hey, actually that was true. It wasn't just a feeling, right? Like it wasn't just, oh yeah, I feel like that.
It's crazy you say that. And I remember like, I think back to like you and I driving to like college in the morning. I'm pretty sure at that point I had already dropped out and I was just going with you just for I would sit in the car at the end of that. I was sitting in the car for a couple hours just hanging out because I'm like, I dropped in my middle class, but I'll hang out because Josh gets off at 3. So, but like having that experience and like I think back to when you told me that like you wanted to be in the Marine Corps. And it just like thinking of that moment and realizing how monumental that was like for you as like a growth thing.
Yeah.
And like I'm honored to have been a part of that, but like then I realized like no, it's like literally because we're like family. You know what I mean? Like we've lived through things together. That's so powerful.
The biggest like the biggest thing about that is like what I've realized in being close to people and what it takes to build like meaningful relationships and friendships particularly is going through hard things together, and we've definitely gone through difficult chapters, and I know I talked to you during some dark times and, I reached out to you too about some things I was going through and, I think that matters, there's a core trust there. Is what I'm trying to get at is, we have developed a core trust and that's because, all these years of us going through different phases of our lives and then still being able to come back. That's what I love about my friends is that I can leave for 10 years and you don't hear another word from me for another 10 years. And I'll come back and I'll be like, hey, what's up, dude? You'll be like, hey, we going to go get something to eat or what?
Literally like almost 10 years. Like I think the last time that I spoke to you prior to that was we had a good 6-year break in between that, and then another 5 years. Like you know what I mean? Like there's time there, but it doesn't matter. It's like it picks up where it left off.
And that's the sign to me of a lasting friendship is something that you can come back to and pick up like you never dropped it or let it go or whatever.
Yeah, it's like we like just hung up the phone 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean? Like even though it's been 10 years, like that.
But
I'm trying to call you for a long time.
Yeah, it said your phone was disconnected.
You got a new number? You moved to Florida? What are you?
But literally, because in this case, like I come back and you're like, I have a child.
Yeah.
And I was like,
hello.
Oh, hi.
Dude, and like some of our friends are like out of state and so far, but like I know if we saw them, like if they walked in the room right now, we'd be screaming at each other laughing within 10 minutes. Like it's that ride it like a bike. That sounds weird in the context, but it's like riding a bike really truly. It's like an emotional bike, I guess.
And
so cheesy. Sorry.
No. That's spot on. I think like the fact that we can do that, I guess, speaks to the friendships that we have.
Yeah.
But okay, so then you mentioned why is this thing so loud? Jeez. Anyway,
in the criminal justice system. Anyways,
Law and Order. Anyway,
these are their stories. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love
it. You mentioned that app. Can't say that.
Whatever. I don't care. Apple. They wanted me. They emailed me. They mailed me some letter that was like, hey, since we separated with you, we just want to make sure you're not gonna say anything about it. Shut up.
right.
You're the largest company.
As long as
you know?
feel, as long as
Oh,
you
I
feel
am
so
comfortable. The name is fine. I won't go into any. You know, I could get
Okay.
sued, but
Sounds
we're
good.
fine.
Well, then
I'm literally kidding.
We'll just
You're
leave it
fine.
at that.
No, it's okay.
So
I loved it. It was a great place to work. Please don't send people to my home. Okay, continue.
yeah. Anyway, carry on. So that chapter, you realize, okay, that's not for me. Have you figured out what it is you want to do?
I think I know eventually where I want to be is I want to be making something. Regardless of what it is, I want to be either producing something, making something, creating, whether it's music or video. Where I want to be on that line, I'm not too sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know I want to be obviously in the video space and in the content creation space. I just don't know if I like being behind the camera, in front of the camera, on the side of the camera. It's a tricky thing to try to find when you've done everything in that project for so long by yourself. And I used to do so many things. I used to do the sketches where I was playing 2 or 3 people, and like it was all cut and it was all on music, video.
It was
everything.
just you, and you would do
It's
it all
exhausting.
Yeah,
it really is. And I wasn't like a professional by any means, but like I put a lot of hard work into those videos, and it takes the piss out of you.
Yeah,
it does, and that's where I don't know what part I enjoyed the most or what part I hated the most, or and finding that balance is tricky.
That's why I don't like edit. Like I know I don't like editing. Like for example, the content creation. I don't like being in front of the camera either.
Right.
But
what are you doing here, man? What the heck? No.
But what I am a fan of is doing things that are difficult and overcoming them. And that's one of those things, right? So for me, it's like, I don't like being in front of the camera, but I've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
And, or I'm getting used to it. Still not 100% like, oh yeah, this is it. Right. But
right. Well, yeah, but finding your space.
Yeah. But I am feeling more comfortable in it now. And, it just took some time for me to like figure out, I guess, like, what is it? Like, what really is it that I feel can be done that isn't being done?
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah. And like everything's being done to an extent, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to find that. I mean, they're obviously not everything, but there is a groove.
What needs more help, I guess? Cause, I found like what brings me purpose is service, like being of service, like most humans, right? I think like most people do get a sort of satisfaction. Of like being of service to other people. I think like maybe that's like a biological thing. Maybe
I think part of it is, and I think part of it's also just like that connection, the human connection. Like you've seen so many different types of content, and like the only ones that are really they invoke that emotion that's real, not just like a flashy boom boom. Here's $1,000 jet. It's more like, hey, here's some real people going through some real stuff right now.
Yeah,
and like this is the reason why they're here, and this is how I want to help, or this is how the world can help, or like this is just how it is. And just having that like that moment where you're connecting with people, you're talking with people, you're interviewing people, you're communicating with people, you're sharing with people, whatever it is. That connection, I think, is what really drives us as like a species.
It's really
in every facet, even though like it can look different.
Yeah, it's and the crazy part is like it's like hardwired. I can feel like a need for it, and especially now as an adult, where it's like, oh, I am on my own, like I
mean, and living through the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
oh
crippling.
Man, yeah,
it's crippling. I developed so much agoraphobia. I don't know if you can do it in amounts, but it's
what exactly is that?
Not like you don't want to leave, you don't want to go out. Like I have an extreme anxiety when I go into stores now, when I have, when I walk into a building, stuff like that.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
It's something that has gotten so much worse prior to. I feel like I made so much progress prior to the pandemic, and then like everything shut down, and I'm like,
I had no idea that.
Yeah,
like it makes sense, but I had no idea that was something people like. Still felt, like
it's almost like you put on a nice fancy suit. And then you walk outside and like no one's there. That was how it felt. And now it's like everybody's wearing a suit, and I just want to walk outside in my hoodie.
Is it like the noise?
I think it's just in general, just the whole experience is just significantly difficult to get through. Just the thought of even like walking out and going to the store. It's gotten a lot better the past few months. Specifically, I've been trying to really work on it. But like even just going to like go shopping, go get groceries. There's so much there that it takes to get to that point, especially if I've already planned the day and then I realize I need something. It's like, oh God, like I have 3 things I got to do. Realistically, there's enough time.
Yeah.
Logically, I know there's enough time, but like mentally, I'm like, there is not enough time. And it's part of that. It's part of that chasing the time and also understanding.
That's crazy, isn't it? Because like a lot of people have told me this, and I feel it too. Of like logically, I know this is how it works.
Yeah.
But like psychologically,
yeah, I feel like a puppy in the
Yeah.
middle of a highway.
yes. And isn't that such a crazy thing that
That's something.
like it's like I know, right? Like I know what I'm actually experiencing,
Right.
and yet I'm still feeling like I'm there.
It's such a wild concept, but like exactly what it feels like talking about it. Like it's
The fact when you said that, like oh yeah, I know this logically. I'm like, yeah, I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
I literally
Yeah.
know exactly what you're
Yeah.
gonna say. And
it's like also like when you have like I don't know, when I have like an extreme episode of panic or anxiety or something, it's like 20 minutes later I'm like, oh no, logically, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, this is why I freaked out. This is how I could have prevented it. And then like 2 days later, same thing. You're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
What? Where was it?
well, and that's kind of how what I'm finding is like how therapy kind of intervenes, right? Is like it's not going to stop the
Right.
feeling. It's going to understand it. And it's like, oh, this is what this is. Like, this is what, you have exercises you can do. Like there's
Right.
breathing, grounding exercises that
Right.
they have. And utilizing them, like taking a deep breath, counting to 10, whatever it is that you need to kind of get you out of that emotional state. Because what it is like I get into like when I have anxiety too. I don't know if I told you this. I have I have very high anxiety. That's why I don't like cameras.
I didn't mean it like a matter of fact. Like, yeah, obviously you could tell.
Clearly.
It's on your face.
You're
What are you talking
falling
about?
apart.
It's right there. It's
Right in
written on
front
your
of me.
forehead. Come on, man. God, wipe the tears off your face. Come on. What? Jeez.
But
no, just
I'm. A lot of people are surprised when I tell them. That's why I'm like, oh yeah, I have very high anxiety, and they're like, oh.
I think it's also I noticed it a few years into like us being in college. I think like I used to think that like you would get like angry at certain points, and then I realized like no, Josh is just super like anxietal right now. Like we'd go out to do something, and I'm like, why does he seem so angry? And like it's in the back of my head. Not that I was sitting there thinking crap about you, but like I'm like, why is he so angry right now?
Yeah.
Like, did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? And then like, you turn to me and you're perfectly fine. And I'm like, what the it's just like, it's like, okay, wait a minute. I thought you were mad, but now you're like making jokes. And then I realized like, no, it's literally just like, you were just super like anxietal in those moments.
It's that. And it's also like a cultural thing. Like I think a lot, if you were to see my family, like we always sound like we're angry. Like when we're
well, it's like my family's the loudest family on the universe too,
Well, Italian families are also known for that.
Yeah. We're just, I call us spam. We're just a mix of a bunch of
gotcha.
Eastern European.
I think I remember you were telling me that. But I always thought you were like mostly,
no interesting history.
Mostly Italian. I thought, never mind.
No, I'm mostly German.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So
I come from the Pilgrims though. Sorry.
Yeah, just so you know.
Yeah,
my family was on the Mayflower.
Yeah. My family with my mom will not shut up about that.
Really?
She's like, my grandpa.
Law and Order.
She loves it. We have an ancestor who was he came over on the Mayflower. It's and I don't mean that like we know his direct name, like direct descendant kind of thing. It's not like I'm related to Obama. So you don't know. Shut up. You don't know. But no.
That's pretty cool though.
Whatever. It's. I mean, it is cool, but it's like historically, if you look at it, like we may or may not have been the people that slaughtered the Native Americans. So it's interesting. I don't know if I'm too proud of it, but I don't
know if I told you this. I'm 60% Native American.
No, it's okay. I'm also related to Daniel Boone. I don't know if that makes a difference, but he was great dude, really great dude. Actually, historically, I thought like I was gonna look him up and be like, oh God, what am I gonna find? No, really, just incredible guy. Worked to try to communicate with different tribes with the people that were coming over to try to. He like fought for people. It was a great dude, but regardless, it doesn't matter.
No.
I'm digressing.
That's pretty interesting though.
Sorry, I just blacked out there for a second. Sorry.
But to get back to what we were talking about, the like that a lot of times culturally, like people don't know that we're just I come from very like loud family, like, and so sometimes people think I'm angry.
The family is very blunt too. Like
very
they
blunt.
will just tell you how they feel.
Yes. Like that. If you tell me something and like I don't like the idea, I'm going to tell you. That's
dude. I don't know how many times you've just texted me back like that's a terrible idea. There was one time I've sent like covers over, and you're just like, I think this would sound better if you did it this way. I'm just like, and I appreciate it. Like, I actually really appreciate it.
I'm sorry if I was ever too blunt, because there is a limit. But
no,
I think that's one of the things correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we both appreciate about our friendship is that like we can be
100%,
because it works the other way, right? It's like you can be blunt too. And yeah, at first I might be like, but I like this idea, and I might sit and wallow in my own pity, but then like I'll go back and be like, actually, you're right.
Yeah,
and that's kind of,
or even what I find more common between us is like, oh, maybe we're like both kind of right.
Yeah,
and like we try to find that middle ground, you know.
Mm-hmm. So that.
Good idea.
But I think that's important, is to some extent, is have that ability to say, yeah, I don't like that idea, because like why would you agreeing to something you don't agree to is probably one of the most anxiety I can feel anxiety just in the thought of thinking that I have to agree with something for the sake of not upsetting you or not upsetting somebody,
right? Because
in the end they're going to be more upset when they find out that you just kind of, in my opinion, that you kind of just followed and you didn't even like it, like you didn't like where we were going.
And that's the thing. It's like you're not just like agreeing to like fucking terms of service. You know, you're agreeing to like invest your time in that person at that level. You know, and it's whether or not you're going to be truthful or whether or not you're going to be, I guess, raw really with the person about like hey, like maybe you should do it this way, maybe you should do it that way. I mean, I've told you like 5 things that you're like, oh shit, this is gonna change a couple things, but like. Sometimes you're like, oh, it makes sense. And then sometimes you're just like, no, it's a terrible idea. This is why I did it this way. And I'm like, okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And then, but like, at least that there's an understanding of like, actually, yeah, you're right there. Or I don't agree with you, actually. Yeah. Maybe let's try it this way. And then I'm like, okay, if you push twice, that's how I know that like you really feel adamant about it.
Yeah. There's things that you shut down. I'm just like, no, it's fine. Totally fine.
Yeah.
And then there's things where I'm like, no, are you sure?
Yeah. And then once you say it, I'm like,
maybe you're right. No. And then you just shut me down 3-4 more times, and then eventually,
we'll figure it out. Yeah. But that's I guess that's the part that I really do enjoy about our friendship, is that bluntness. Yeah. Because it's unfortunately, I don't know. I don't want to say something that's like out of pocket in terms of like a big generalization, but so far from what I've gathered is that in society it's pushed that you kind of have to agree with people to not upset them.
Yeah. And I think it also varies. Like, I think at the end of the day, if you were to pull any random Joe Schmo off the internet and be like, hey, what do you think about this topic? I think 99% of people are going to be like pretty middle ground, or at least logically understanding that, like, okay, this person, said this or this, or did this and this, and as long as it doesn't hurt like a mass group of people, and you're not going around slaughtering people or like, doxing
crimes.
People or sending the police to people's houses. Like, there's no need for any of that stuff. But like, I don't think that ever is going to warrant, like, anything that somebody could just say on the internet does not warrant a full blown explosion of their life. And I think that's where our culture has kind of, and I hate the whole like argument of, there's all the bros going, oh, cancel culture. And I get that. I understand that. But I think it's more of it's a deeper issue than that. It really is.
Well, we've skimmed this topic quite a bit now. Is like, and this is again just my opinion. Is like, I think that the reason why I'm pushing for more communication is because I think that it's deeper than like the topic everybody talks about of like, it's not about that political thing. Like, yes, that's the surface topic, sure, but
what else is there?
Why does that make you angry? Like, why does that make you sad? Why does that make you like whatever you feel? Why does that's an important question, because if you can ask that question to yourself, well, then maybe you could get to the root feeling. Like, because we're complicated. Like, internally, we're like, even like, for me, let me give you an example. Like, I used to think I knew why things upset me. Yeah. Until I went to therapy. I was like, oh.
My first therapy session was the moment when I don't go to therapy right now. Probably should, but I don't. I had a therapist years ago, but that was that one moment, the first time I sat down and like actually talked it out. Mm-hmm. It was that moment I was like, oh, I was like, there's something that's fundamentally off. You know what I mean? And I think that's that like shining, like, okay, Where do I go from here? What course do I correct?
Yeah,
You know,
some,
what
like
direction?
something isn't right here. I haven't been addressing something.
Yeah.
I guess is really the what it comes down to is, and that was the case for me. It was like a wake up call. It was like I am having the wrong conversation,
Right.
and what is the right conversation? And ultimately, what it's meant for me is like asking before you go and assume,
Yeah.
what is happening. Why don't you go and ask, what is happening?
There is a guy on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen him. His name's Oompaville. Makes these videos. He has been like specifically going out of his way to make videos with certain people that have been either like publicly canceled or you know harassed on the internet for something they said. And 99% of the time, these people are like totally shunned by society. He brings them into a video, and it's like, oh my God, they're a human. And it boggles my mind that these comments are like, I would have never thought this. It's like you guys never took one second. And like I'm guilty of it too in the past. Never taking that 1 second to be going like, okay, this isn't just a person on a screen. This is like a person in the world.
Yeah.
And
it has feelings and feels things and
lives and kids and grandkids. And, you know, like there's these people have like their entire life on view. And I feel like that's almost a form of respect to their audience. And then for that same audience, or for a larger audience even sometimes, to come and just completely destroy that because of one mistake.
Well, that's why like child stars like, Nickelodeon stars or Disney stars are so heartbreaking, their stories, because like they have been in the spotlight their entire life, or their entire like life that they can remember. Yeah.
I mean, like the adult life and the formative years, throughout that.
Yeah. And the problem is like, when they grow up and become adults, like a lot of times their audience or whoever grew up watching them, now is like, oh, they're not who they used to. Well, they can't be who they used to be, because that's how
they're a human.
They evolve. Like they change. People change. Yeah. So that's why I also don't like the saying of like, oh, you've changed. I hope so. Yeah. Good.
What'd you notice?
Like, because it's important.
I think that's also comes with that same aspect of it's the way that we view. I think the way that we see people commentate about the way they view celebrities really tells a lot about the way that we see like each other and other people in our world.
Absolutely.
People that like they look at these celebrities and they're like, oh God, man. I saw something about Aubrey Plaza, right? And they were like, she was at an awards show, and somebody had commented something like, she looks like she got hit by the age bus or something. And I'm like, what a thing to say. Disgusting thing to say.
Yeah, what like
to somebody you don't know anything about,
Like and the crazy part is like, unfortunately, here's the good and the bad, right?
Yeah.
Because like I've been away from social media for a couple of years, like in terms of a personal account. Yeah. And that was due to like, I was in a very, very dark time in my life, and it was just like too much. What it was is, put it like this, it's too much input, not enough output.
Yeah, too much noise.
Too much noise, and it's like I can't decipher. Like I hear all these people arguing on social media, like all these opinions clashing, and people are talking about this human is a terrible human, and that human's a terrible human because they believe this and they believe that. Right. And it's like they must be the worst, they're the devil, and I'm like, oh my God. Like I don't even know who I am right now. Like from all this, like I can't.
Who knows? Like I look back at where I was 10 years ago, and I'm like, I was a total cancelable piece of shit. If you look at the culture that we're sitting in now, like
it's just like we're human beings. Like we make mistakes. We do things. We do things in a bad way sometimes, and there's better ways to do it. And then you course correct, and you go, I'm not going to do it that way anymore. But you can't live in that.
If you're actively going out and starting hate campaigns for people, like
if you're going out of your way to,
you should be hindered
to damage others.
Right. Like, but even then, people go too far, because I think that there's a point where you are trying to stop someone from damaging people, so you start damaging that person. And I think it's like, cut them out, silence them in your own world. Silence them entirely if you want.
Just walk away.
Don't attack them.
Walk away from it. Don't involve your family in it if you don't believe in it.
It's like that be the bigger person kind of concept, but brought up almost to the online world.
I just think ultimately we have to, I was talking to a therapist in one of the interviews I did in that last episode we filmed, and she told me that sometimes you just have to agree to disagree, and we've forgotten how to do that.
Oh God, yeah, in mass.
Is like we can have a difference in opinion, and in fact, people have how they used to do it is they used to have healthy relationships in entirely different demographics of like religion and different demographics of political views. And and it's like, oh yeah, I guess the agree to disagree is missing, you know? And I think that to some extent social media has contributed to like the mass separation in opinions, right? Because like
I would almost say almost solely contributed to that. In our current culture, it's really the internet's so ingrained in our life.
Well, because like the algorithms pick what you receive based off what you liked, and then it's like, oh, you're only going to see that now. Yeah. And when you do see the opposing side, it's like you're insulted that there's.
I think the internet used to be a mirror to society, and I think right now it's like everybody has a personal mirror. Used to be one big mirror, the whole world, and now it's like everybody's got their own personal mirror,
and everybody thinks that they're the best. Like, that, like,
I mean, it's the way most of those algorithms, like you just said, it used to be the algorithm would serve you something, and now it's you're going out and your account is basically the algorithm. You know what I mean? You're finding stuff for that person, not the other way around.
Yep.
And that almost becomes, you know, when left unchecked, like 90% of the internet has been for a while. It's become toxic.
So when I've stepped away from it, when I did step away, like at first the silence was like terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Like I realized like why people don't like the idea of shutting off social media and why it's so addicting, because it's like when you do shut it off and now it's just you in your head, you have to face what's really there now, because social media kind of became like a way for me to avoid dealing with like a lot of the feelings I was having. And
of course.
You know, a lot of the pain that I felt is like, oh, social media is like this distraction where I can be right all the time. Because it shows you opinions that are just like yours.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that and I stepped away, I was like, oh, actually, this is something I haven't been dealing with.
Right.
And this is why I think this. And actually, this might be why it was wrong. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
no, 100%.
All of that, like it took the silence for me to realize that the noise, the selective noise.
Yeah.
Is really the problem right now, is like the amount of input of just what you think and not of what others think is damaging.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's ripping families apart, right? Because the whole, I don't want to get too much in politics, but
I think we all know what you're inferring.
but when like the whole Trump era occurred, where it's like he got elected, like people were like literally ending family relationships.
Yeah. And like I will say, I've seen it on both sides of that argument. I have seen it where like the person had no choice but to stop talking to the person that was trying to be. It's almost like they were being so adverse that they were forced to stop talking, and it's like sick. It's sad.
It happens on both sides.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Like, it's a human thing. 100% is like it happened on both sides, where it's like, oh, you have a different opinion than me.
Yep.
And
I think that's the most heartbreaking part of it, is that you've had so many other opinions that you've had discourse on. Why is that one different sometimes, you know?
Why is that one so painful?
Right.
Or why is that one so aggravating? Because what I learned is like I used to think that like being angry, that was it. Like you're just
point
angry.
Across.
Like you're just angry. Like that's the emotion I'm actually feeling is anger. No, it is a disguise for sadness or hurt.
Yeah. With a lot of passion behind
I was like,
it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, you know, like
I think seeing the way that I'm going to adjust this. Seeing the way that our online culture has changed in just the past, let's say 5 years, right? There used to be a point where you could kind of self-mediate, I guess, where you could say like I guess let me roll this back. Something that I started doing was reading what I'm posting 3 times. First time I read it is when I'm typing it. Second time I'm rereading it. The third time I'm rereading it going, okay, what am I saying? And do I want to be saying this? What's the reaction to that going to be? And do I want to deal with it? Right? I used to have fights on Facebook, on Twitter, on everything.
It's hard to avoid.
It is very hard. And you know, I'm an opinionated person. There's things we don't agree on that I'm just, I have my opinions and they're going to stay that way. But, and same to you. But I think that moment is what we're missing. Being able to like, I don't want to say disconnect with what we're saying, because like there are things that you need to talk about
Absolutely.
with people, and discourse in the public forum online is really important. But I think when you face it with, excuse me, when you
that was pretty close.
When you face it with anger, or you start, talking in malice, like even if what you're fighting, let's say even if what you're fighting for, or what you're arguing over is like human rights, right? If you're going to sit there and call somebody names and unload on this person, what are you kind of missing the point?
Well, I think that's the truth.
Like we all want the same thing as people generally. We want people to be happy.
What we're missing is, well, why did it get that reaction? Why did you get so wound up about that? Like what made you want to speak? Because like ultimately, here's what I've also learned is I used to think things were very black and white. Like we have good, we have evil,
right?
And we have people who are either good or we have people who are evil,
right?
That's it. And that view of the world really, really inhibited my ability to see the truth of what we are, which is in myself, right? Which is like ultimately we are both. We can do great things in this world, and we can do very bad things. Do we intend to do bad things? I don't think so. I think the majority of us want to be good.
I think also that comes into question of like that argument of like, do the ends justify the means kind of thing? Because like there's so many bad things that have happened that have led to great strengths and and bad decisions that ended up, or what seemingly on paper would have been a bad decision ended up working out. And just in general, I think there's a quote from The 100. It's a great TV show. Holy crap, you got to watch it.
Yeah.
But is a really good quote. Says something about basically what's happening is like there's so much politically changing in their world. One of the presidents, whatever they call it, I forget, it's been a while since I watched it, said a good leader, right, knows how to follow the rules, and a great leader knows when to break them. And I think that kind of plays into question of there are things that everybody's going to do where the means feel like they're just wrong. And I don't mean this in like any more deeper way than what sounds like I'm talking about like me setting up like a bank heist or something. I'm just like, no, trust me, I'm going to feed people. But like, there's things that happen where it's like, okay, well, like either way, this is going to happen. Like what's the positive we can pull from it, or what can we learn from it?
Yeah.
For the next time. So I think that's, kind of a circle I'm talking in, but
I think the lesson there is, we're capable of doing both things, and it doesn't mean that inherently if somebody does something that you see as bad, they're bad people.
Right.
Like that's been the hardest part for me, is like, well, they did something that was bad to me, and therefore they must be bad people, right?
Yeah.
And that's been the hardest thing for me to step back from it and be like, wait a minute.
You have to realize that's like 1/10% of their life.
Yeah, wait a minute. Like there's more to that story, and what are you missing, and what are the conversations you're not having? So with that, I think that's a good way to segue. We're coming up on our hour here, so I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah.
Super grateful for your friendship.
Yeah, man.
And all the years that we've had.
It is a pleasure to be around you and doing the things that like we literally
talked about.
Kind of grew our friendship wanting to do. That I think this was like, even though this is such a small production, this would be like a pipe dream.
I'm living the dream, man. I'm doing something that is meaningful to me, and to have you a part of it is a great treat.
No, definitely. Likewise, man.
Thanks.